our girls, they are able to strengthen their own mothers and their own families in a very nice way, because they get educated, they get empowered, and they are able to go back and give the same values to the family. Idea is that they get empowered, they get their thought process right, they are worried about the gender issues, and they take action.
Today we have with us Ms. Kiran Modi, founder and managing trustee of Udayan Care, which literally translates to Eternal Sunshine and Care in Sanskrit. Since its inception in February 1994, Udayan Care's initiatives are focused towards regenerating the rhythm of life of the disadvantaged. Ms. Modi's interest in alternative care for children in need of care and protection led her to launch a biannual academic journal titled Institutionalized Children, Explorations and Beyond under the Aegis of Udayan Care in 2014. With a doctorate in American literature from IIT Delhi, Dr. Modi is a person of varied experiences in diverse fields such as children in care, media, health, and children's theatre. Ms. Modi, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
It's my pleasure and a great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, tell us a little bit about how and why Udayan Care was founded and what was the vision that you originally began with.
Well, it started with a personal tragedy, but we were very clear from the beginning that we would really want to do something which is going to make a difference in somebody's life. And that's how initial 1 year, I was like a good Samaritan, not knowing really enough about the development sector. So 1 year was actually an exploration into the sector, understanding various causes and what would really work for us. And finally, after visiting different causes and different organizations, we started zeroing down on children without parental care, who were called orphans at that time, and such homes were called orphanages. But we started realizing children who go to these kind of childcare institutions, they go there as an orphan and they come out also as an orphan because they've never developed any kind of bonding or belonging. So that's where the journey started.
Mm-hmm. And what was the vision, ma'am? What were you trying to create by these Udayan Ghars, as you call it, that you started?
So actually, it's a larger picture. It's not limited only to the Udayan Ghars. And the vision also evolved bit by bit. So in the beginning, we were very happy to look after orphaned and abandoned children, giving them a real home, a family feeling. Just 12 children living together in a setup, in a community setup. So children are exposed to community, they don't feel they are away from community, giving them good education, psychosocial support, all kinds of exposure, and above all, parental love. So we developed a system which is called mentor parents. And these parents, they sign up for life. And we are now 35 and there are 17 children's homes where we are looking after these children like our own. We of course have the full paraphernalia, the complete social workers and psychologists and, care staff, everybody on board. But this particular part of parenting is left to volunteers like me, and we are 35 of them who are looking after. From there, the vision started for strengthening the families, because we started realizing many children who were coming to us, they were not really orphans in the true sense of the term. They could be semi-orphans, they could be double orphans, but many still had a parent or a grandparent or an uncle or aunt. So from there, our interest in family strengthening started. And we thought that institutional care at best can only be the last resort. First, the child should be in the family. And how do you strengthen the family so that the child does not go away from the family? We started looking at many options. So the options which came up were like, if we are able to educate the girls who are there in the family and take them for higher education, most likely the families will not get dismantled, and they will continue to be together. They will be strengthened. So from there, our Udayan Shalini Fellowship Program started, which looks after girls from the disadvantaged families and helps them in finishing their schooling as well as higher education. Again, as in the Ghar program, there is a huge component of mentoring. Each girl is given a mentor who actually handholds the child to be, and the family, to be able to go ahead in life. From there only, our vocational training program started, where we have these 17 children, 17 computer centers, and there are other learning centers where youth from the communities are coming, and we are training them into different vocations. Idea is, by doing 3 months, 6 months, 1 year course, they will start getting into jobs, and that will again strengthen the family. So under the strengthening families, in this umbrella, all our programs are designed.
Right. Ma'am, why did you particularly decide to venture into skill development, and what has been kind of the impact of both the Shalini Fellowship as well as your vocational trainings and initiatives?
Yeah, so I think, okay, let me answer the first question. Why did we get into vocational training? We were running our own children's homes, and we were realizing that there were too many constraints of sending them out to different kind of vocational training centers, because many of them were going to schools. So what we started realizing, that we had a beautiful center in Greater Noida, and there was so much space. And one important component that I've always felt, children should be exposed to communities. So we thought, if we set up we called it Create a Center, which is really a very creative center where girls and women from the neighboring communities can also come, and our girls will also get trained who are living in the homes. Besides their education, they could also get training into different vocations and also develop a contact with the community. I thought it was very, very important. So with that idea, we started, and we found it was really working. And we started realizing that there is so much need of vocational training in the communities that, one step led to another. And very soon, we started setting up more and more centers.
Right.
Now, coming back to the impact. I think impact has been huge, even if you look at the Shalini program. Because in the Shalini program, so far, 8,500 girls have been served for their schooling and higher education. Some of them are going for vocational training. But we make sure that the girls are able to get into jobs. But some may get married. So for that also, we are very happy, because if you are becoming an educated mother, you will be look after your family in a better way. And our girls, they are able to strengthen their own mothers and their own families in a very nice way, because they get educated, they get empowered, and they are able to go back and give the same values to the family. We are constantly in touch with the families, where we do, at least 2 or 3 meetings in a year. And now, because of the COVID, it has made it all the more easier to meet the families, because we are meeting them on Zoom. We are organizing parental workshops where all the parents come together. We talk to them about family issues, and, we are talking to them individually. And the girls are doing exceedingly well. We have 3 girls who have studied in Cambridge and University of Chicago, in those kind of and now they are giving back in a big way. And we have got so many girls who have studied in the premier institutions, from IIT to IIM to Bangalore Institute of Science. I mean, these girls have really done amazingly well. But we are very happy, even if a girl is able to do her normal bachelor's course and gets into a job, or does her B.Ed and becomes a teacher. So idea is that they get empowered, they get their thought process right, they are worried about the gender issues, and they take action. So that's how I think the program has been hugely successful, because the mentors and the conveners of different chapters, we are in 21 cities for this particular program. Each program is run by a volunteer committee with our staff members who are very dedicated. So I think the impact has been huge. And if you look at the Vocational Training Center, more than 10,000 youth have been empowered. in the last so many years, and we make sure that they also get into jobs. This is also one of the commitments that we want to fulfill. Most of the time we are able to get them into jobs, but the COVID actually, we thought in the beginning that COVID is really destroying whatever we've been able to achieve so far.
Right.
But very soon, our staff members, they started calling each and every student, explaining them how to come on Zoom. And those students who didn't have mobiles, they started borrowing mobiles from their friends, and we continued our online classes. Wherever they needed grocery, we sent grocery. Wherever they need mobiles and other technology, we are trying our level best to find more donors so that more children can get mobiles. And some corporates have also gone ahead and given us used laptops.
Right.
So we are trying to fulfill all their needs so that the COVID times does not really destroy all the years of good work that has been done on them.
Right. I think, ma'am, it's very heartening to see how profound the vision is and how holistic it is. I mean, you're no longer just targeting skill development for employment, but you're targeting that as a means to livelihood for community mobilization and, more importantly, women empowerment, which is something that we don't see very often when it comes to, the skilling initiatives in the country. So it's absolutely wonderful to hear everything that Udayan Care has, achieved in the past.
Thank you so
I
much.
Specifically on skilling, what has been the main challenge when it came to COVID, and how have you kind of pivoted yourself in light of the crisis?
Yeah. So actually, most of the students, they don't have smartphones. They may have phone, but not a smartphone. Maybe in one family, there is one smartphone. Until the fathers were home, in the initial 2-3 months when they were not getting jobs, there was a lockdown. At that time, the children were still able to use their father's mobiles. So we very soon pivoted into teaching everything online. And the problem was we can't teach computer online, but you can do soft skills online. You can do, even some theory classes online. Let them at least start absorbing. We continued with our English language teaching. We continued with, community mobilization, and we tied up with IBM for introducing more and more courses. We've been doing in some of the centers. We were very lucky. We were already using laptops rather than desktops, and we talked to the donors and they agreed. So we gave the laptops to the children so
Right.
that they could take it home and they work from there, and we could do online classes. So we have done in several ways, and I think our students are raring to go, and we are just waiting for the centers to start. So even for centers to meet with the COVID challenge, we've developed our own advisories. We've decided none of the theory classes, English language classes, life skills classes are going to be done in person. There always used to be a lab, theory lab and a practical lab. So now only practical classes will be held so that we can, stagger the students and maintain social distancing. And all the theoretical part, the life skills, job readiness training, so that they can get into jobs, training them onto other things, all that is happening only online.
And I think, ma'am, COVID, it originally did come as a crisis, but, we've been able to turn it into an opportunity and kind of cascade it into online learning, which I know has been on the agenda for years now, but is, finally, coming into practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great, ma'am. And talking about your IBM collaboration, tell us a little bit about what kind of skills that you're looking to get out of this collaboration for your students.
So there are a lot of courses that they've developed, and our trainers, we took this time to get all our trainers certified by IBM. So if the regular classes were running, it would have been difficult. So, and there are many classes, which we are able to get from them, and we are launching. We have developed our own website, a separate website only for vocation training. So there are a lot of courses. And now we are also going to, we are applying for National Skills Certification. It would have happened in February, but because of COVID, it got delayed. So now we are going full steam ahead, and we are going to continue even when the centers open, half and half, online as well as offline, so that we can make up for the loss of these 6 months, because there was no payment, no salaries. I mean, we had to give salaries. We didn't want to, make our our staff suffer.
Right.
So that was very, very clear that we did not want to shut down, centers. We did not want to have an entrenchment or salary cuts. So it has been a very, very difficult period, but the staff was continuously working. Many of them were pivoted into doing online classes for our children's homes. So 40 children at a time, in 4 states of India, they were taking the classes together. Our staff who needed, advanced Excel training, so the computer trainers, they did that also, so we tried to pivot everything around COVID which could make it beneficial.
So now talking about now the future of Udayan Care, what are some things that you would like to focus on, and which direction is the initiative heading into?
Yeah, so child protection is my most favorite, and actually education and vocational training are feeding into my child protection agenda, as I explained it to you. So we are continuing, and research is one part which really interests us. And our national research that we did in 2018 about the care leavers, children who grow up into homes at the age of 18, they have to be out. And are we preparing them for independence? We are not. We are not giving them social skills. We are not giving them independent living skills. Hardly any education, hardly any vocational training, no understanding of laws, my personal rights, my rights as a citizen, my identity papers, nothing. And then we ask the child to go at the age of 18. That really worries us. So we have developed, some programs, and we are very, very happy that we got an opportunity to work in Madhya Pradesh and Bihar with the governments and UNICEF there, where we are working on transition planning. 15 to 18, when the children are at the children's home, you prepare them for ultimate transition, and then you are able to stand on your own feet. And aftercare is one opportunity which the laws do mandate. In the Juvenile Justice Act, it is mandated, but it is not happening in a big way. So we are also trying to push that agenda that every child coming out of alternative care should be availing aftercare. If they get proper, adequate aftercare till the age they are 21, and if they are studying further till 23, there is every possibility that they will be competing with the ordinary youth in the society. But unlike ordinary youth, children born in your family or my family, they just don't have anything to fall back upon. No family, no education, no vocational training, no life skills training, nothing. And then they are ousted. So they get into, very sad to say, but some of them also get into criminal activities because there's no one to, guard them or safeguard them. So all these COVID has actually thrown up the data. I wouldn't call it data, it's more like empirical evidence. We are noticing it all the time and all over India. Care leavers who left care, they were in a bad situation, because when at the age of 18, you start with a minimal salary job, and immediately you are thrown out because there are no jobs available. And then when you don't have even that much money, how do you pay for your rent? How do you eat food? So many care leavers were suffering across India. So actually in Udayan Care, we started a program which is called Ghar Wapasi. All our adults who left and they were into jobs, who needed this kind of a support, we have taken a separate place where we are trying to keep them. We are trying to get them into different jobs. We are organizing their food, their psychosocial support, everything. But not many organizations will be able to do all this, So it is a bit problematic, this situation. And actually, we reached out to the government also. And I do believe some governments did issue out letters to their district child protection officers to collect the names and details of the care leavers, but I don't know where it is. So they were, I think, the worst sufferers. Even the youth coming from a very poor family, if the father is earning something, the son can also help, and they are able to make their two ends meet. At least they have emotional support from each other. These children have none.
I think that is the harsh reality of how it is, when you turn 18, the sudden shift from child services to adult services, it really leaves, people just in that gap where they have to suddenly, figure out how to make it by on their own. And it has to be a gradual process, a process of hand-holding them and introducing them into this real world, so to say. So that's great, ma'am, that you're focusing on that. And with that, ma'am, we would like to end our interview today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. It was so inspiring and insightful to hear from you and such a unique initiative like Udayan Care. And I wish you all the very best for all your efforts in the future.
I'm so grateful for all your encouragement, lovely words with which you encouraged me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.